The wave of protests on May 12, 1998, marked the beginning of the Reform era, which ended in tragedy. This event left a lasting historical burden of human rights violations, including disappearances, robbery, looting, sexual assault, and murder. Ustad Rohim and Yanuar hear noises from outside, and the power goes out. Suddenly, someone attacks them, fast, brutal, and merciless, and in moments, it's over. Meanwhile, Anissa hears someone calling her name and jolts awake, gasping. She looks around and sees that all her roommates are asleep. She opens the door to step outside, but upon seeing a ghost, Anissa immediately slams the door shut and begins praying to God. Suddenly, her friend places a hand on her shoulder and asks what happened, but she is too stunned to speak. Her friend opens the door and finds no one there, leaving Anissa in shock, and after her friend goes back inside, she quickly closes the door again.
Like, comment, subscribe to Recapss Horror.
Later, Anissa is walking to class with her friends when Nurul asks what she saw last night, and just as she is about to answer, Satrio bumps into her, and she blurts out that she saw a demon. He's a little shocked to hear this, but then he doesn't pay much attention, and Anissa and Nurul walk away. The boys then approach Ustad Begas, and Satrio says he's never seen him posting news before, mentioning that it's usually Ustad Rohim, but Begas doesn't respond and quietly walks away. Later, an announcement is made at school instructing all students to return to their dormitories, stating that classes are cancelled for the day. Later, Satrio asks Anissa what's wrong, and she replies, "Just girl stuff." He then asks if she really saw a demon, and she says she did. Just then, Rizwan arrives and asks Satrio what he's doing there, to which Satrio steps out of the room and says he was just talking to Anissa. That night, Satrio tells Ali that the Ustads have been acting strange, and Anissa claimed she saw a demon, but Ali brushes it off, saying she's just tired. Satrio disagrees, pointing out that several students, including Ustad Rohim and Yanuar, are missing, but Ali suggests they might have gone with the Ki or are attending a study group elsewhere. Meanwhile, Anissa is in the infirmary when the door slowly opens on its own and the same ghost she saw last night enters. Frozen in fear, she watches as it moves around the room before vanishing right before her eyes. Terrified, Anissa rushes out and slams the door, but a moment later, the ghost places a hand on her shoulder. She bolts, desperate to escape, only to encounter the ghost again. Panicked, she runs from there and hides, and when she stands to look for the ghost, it's gone. But her eyes fall on a man digging into the ground. Watching closely, she sees him pulling something from a bag, and she realizes he is practicing black magic. Meanwhile, a teacher named Samir enters a room where 2 decayed corpses lie on the floor. He tries to switch on the light, but it doesn't work, and when he falls to his knees, sobbing in guilt, it's revealed that they are Ustad Rohim and Ustad Yanuar. At the same time, we see a man performing a dark ritual. He picks up a gecko, bites off its head, and pours its blood onto burning coals. He lifts a voodoo doll and dips it into the blood, making Rohim sit up and whisper, "All is dead." Then Yanuar does the same, and terrified, Samir shuts his eyes. But when he opens them, the corpses are gone. Panicking, he rushes to the door, but finds it's locked. He struggles to open it, but after a while, he hears Rohim and Yanuar's voices echoing the same chilling words. Meanwhile, the man performing the ritual releases one of the voodoo dolls, and then he cuts off the head of the other doll, prompting Rohim to rise, clutching its severed head. Yanuar suddenly appears behind Samir, and trembling, he slowly turns around, only to come face to face with the ghost. Overwhelmed with terror, he collapses on his knees as the ghost bends down and vomits onto him. Meanwhile, Anissa bumps into Satrio, and they hear Samir screaming. They run toward the sound and freeze in shock, seeing his condition. Next, we see them in the infirmary, and Anissa tells the others that he was cursed, explaining that she knows this because she likes reading books about curses and magic. Just then, Rizwan and Bagas arrive, and Bagas orders everyone to leave and return to their dorms. Rizwan calls Ki back and informs him that the bodies have vanished, despite their search. Ki asks why they weren't buried, and Rizwan explains that he was waiting for his return. Bega says Rizwan was afraid of something that might not even be real, and that his hesitation has hurt the school's reputation. Ki calms him down and asks who else knows about it, and Bagas replies that the students are unaware of the deaths, they only know about Samir. Later, Ki gathers all the students and teachers, and they pray together. But during the prayer, Satrio sees Yanor's ghost standing right there, and he falls back in terror. Everyone turns to him in shock, and in that moment, Ali notices that Ki is missing. All the students are then instructed to gather in the hall, and Ali asks Satrio if he really saw Yanor's corpse, to which Satrio replies yes, adding that this school is no longer safe. Later, Anissa wakes up and asks Nurul where the others are, but Nurul suddenly starts convulsing. Anissa rushes to her to check on her, and when Nurul turns, she is revealed to be possessed and says, "All is dead." Nurul suddenly wakes her up, and Anissa sits up, gasping, realizing it was all a nightmare. She steps out to go to the bathroom when she hears someone calling her name, and suddenly, a ghost whispers, "The Kiai's cottage," before disappearing. Meanwhile, Satrio tells Ali that Samir is cursed, but Ali insists he might just be sick. Suddenly, they hear strange noises from Samir's stomach, and Satrio asks, "What kind of sickness is this?" Satrio leaves to get permission to leave for home, and just then, Samir sits up, causing Ali to slowly back away in terror. Then Samir stands up and begins muttering, "All is dead." He then leaps off the bed and moves toward Ali, who rushes out of the room and slams the door shut. Anissa goes to the bathroom, where she finds something wrapped in a cloth. Suddenly, she notices someone at a distance and quickly hides. Peeking from her hiding spot, she sees Ustad Begas placing an offering there before quietly walking away. Moments later, Nurul enters and asks, "What is it?" And Anissa shows her the offering. Nurul asks, "Who placed it here?" And Anissa warns her that it's dangerous, but Nurul calls it shirk and throws it into the dustbin. After a while Nurul is washing clothes, she notices a dark silhouette behind a hanging bedsheet, but when she pulls it aside, no one is there. Confused, she looks around and seeing nothing unusual, she continues her work. However, as she shakes a piece of cloth, some water splashes into her eyes, and soon she feels an intense burning sensation. Anissa rushes to her and asks what's wrong, but Nurul sits down, rubbing her eyes in agony, and suddenly, blood begins pouring from them, and moments later, she starts vomiting blood. Before Anissa can even process what's happening, something grotesque begins to slither from Nurul's mouth, a jagged, barbed wire. Her body convulses as she painfully drags it out. Then, with a sickening snap, her hand darts to her eye and yanks out a nail. Her screams echo as she steps backward in pain, and she topples into a well. But Anissa clutches her arm. She tries to pull her up, but Roham's ghost snatches at Anissa's leg and pulls her into the well. Meanwhile, Begas confronts Rizwan, saying he is too slow to make decisions and can't determine what's best for the school. Rizwan replies that the Kiai entrusted this responsibility to him, and it's not easy. He reminds Begas that he was the one who decided to pin the news on the bulletin board, which has only made things worse. Begas insists it's no different now, but Rizwan responds that this is exactly why they shouldn't make matters worse. At that moment, Rati intervenes, telling them to stop arguing. She then warns Rizwan that the situation is dangerous, revealing that there is a killer inside the school. But when Bagas asks how she knows, Rashi has no answer. Later, as all the students and teachers are praying, an unsettling change ripples through the room. Some students begin to twitch and mutter under their breath. Suddenly, their movements grow violent and erratic, and anyone who tries to intervene is met with sudden, brutal aggression. One of the students lunges at Satrio, and Rizwan dashes forward to help, but the room descends into chaos. Later, when everything calms down, Anissa rushes into the infirmary to get the medicine, followed by Satrio and Ali, but Ali stops him and says he'll stay outside. Satrio tries to take him inside, but he refuses. As Satrio enters, we see Samir eating glass bottles and suddenly appears in front of them. He asks Satrio, How is your father? And what is he busy with? Then, without a word, he begins eating the glass bottles again, while Satrio and Anissa slip out of the infirmary. Satrio runs out of the school to head home, only to be met with a horrifying sight. Numerous dead bodies litter the road, and a man hangs lifelessly from a tree. He steps forward cautiously and sees a group of rioters decapitating a man. One of them suddenly spots him and gives chase. Satrio runs for his life and leaps into a pit, only to land on a grim, writhing mound of corpses. Moments later, the rioters arrive, searching hungrily for him, and he holds his breath, buried beneath the corpses. At the same time, Satrio's mother, Amina, searches for Sobo and finds his cap lying on the floor. Confused, she looks around when suddenly, Sobo's body falls from above, hanging from the ceiling, and she is horrified to see that he has been brutally killed. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Anissa's father, tormented by poverty, wanted to sacrifice his unborn child, but her mother refused, picked up a knife, and slits her own neck, while Anissa watched helplessly from her room. The next morning, Anissa confronts Begaz, asking, "Where were you during the mass possession?" And he replies that he was searching for the Kiai with the police. She tells him she saw him near the well before Nurul died, and asks what he was doing, to which Begaz responds, "That's none of her business." And before walking away, he says he didn't do what she is thinking. Rati rushes to intervene, and Begaz leaves the scene. When Rati asks Anissa what happened, Anissa explains that Begaz used black magic on Nurul, claiming she saw him near the well before Nurul died. Rati acknowledges her grief but warns, "Don't let sorrow blind your heart." She explains that all the Ustads are trying to find out who is responsible, and cautions her not to act recklessly, saying she doesn't want her to get hurt. She reminds her that they need to stay strong, for everyone else too. Meanwhile, Satrio reaches home and is devastated to see his father's dead body. He tells his mother that he is going to bury him, but she warns, "Don't do it," saying they will know it's his body, and they might use it for black magic rituals. He suggests burying him in the backyard, and she warns him that the longer he stays there, the more dangerous it becomes. Satrio nods, saying he understands and that they need to leave together. After burying him, Satrio asks Amina, "Why did they target Dad? And why is it so easy for people to accuse others of being a sorcerer?" Amina explains that his father worked closely with many religious leaders, including Kiai Ahmad. His spiritual gift allowed him to help many people, but it also drew the hatred of real sorcerers. They took advantage of the chaos to get rid of him, accusing him of being a sorcerer, and even those he had helped before did not defend him. She tells him there was never any proof, explaining that black magic always leaves a trace and requires a medium. She then advises Satrio to return to his school, and he asks her to come with him, but she says she's grateful he came home to bury his father. He insists that she can come with him, yet she reassures him that he will be safer at the school, and that she will stay behind to guard the home, ensuring he always has a place to return to. Meanwhile, Anissa gives Yadi water for students in the hall. After Yadi leaves, Anissa smells and checks the pot, only to see Yadi's head cooking inside. She freezes as a possessed Yati suddenly appears and stabs a knife into her own neck, splattering blood across Anissa's face. She rushes to the infirmary, only to find Rati possessed, who suddenly turns toward her, calling her name in a demonic hiss, and says, "You said you wanted to be an Ustadza." Anissa watches in horror as Rati cuts her own thumb with scissors, then proceeds to sever the rest of her fingers. Anissa tries to escape, but the door slams shut, and as she runs to the window, Rati throws her aside and lunges at her. But Anissa fights back with all her strength. She kicks Rati's back and tries to escape, and as Rati lunges again, Anissa begins reciting prayers, causing Rati to bleed from her eyes and mouth. Desperate, Anissa continues the prayers, and after a tense struggle, Rati stabs herself in the head and collapses to the floor. Later, as Anissa sits outside the hall, her mother suddenly appears and whispers, "The Kiai's cottage," before disappearing into the air. Anissa goes to the Kiai's cottage, but finds it locked, so she peeks inside through a skylight and sees something that shocks her. Terrified, She rushes to Bagas and insists they must check the Kiai's room, but he asks, "Where have you been?" And she replies, "That place is the source of all this." Rizwan says it would be disrespectful to search the Kiai's private room, but Anissa argues that it's for the good of everyone. Satrio sides with her, saying she's right, and that he's sure the Kiai would agree as well. Satrio breaks down the door to the Kiai's room, and they find black magic items stacked in a corner. Anissa confronts Bagas, accusing him of placing offerings around the school, but he insists he was removing them to protect everyone. He adds that he isn't the only one with full access and asks, "Why don't you suspect Rizwan?" Satrio tells Ali, "Anissa, and I will check Rizwan's room, and you search the nurse's office." Suddenly, the power goes out, and Satrio warns them, "Be careful, this isn't over." Ali and the others rush toward the nurse's office when Fatih suddenly stops, hearing a demonic voice. Intrigued, he cautiously moves in that direction, but a crackling noise from behind makes him freeze, and he is horrified to see Rahim's ghost. Ali and Dina hear his scream and rush back to him, while Fatih encounters Yanur's ghost, who thrusts his hand into his belly. Meanwhile, Satrio enters Rizwan's room while Anissa waits outside, and suddenly, the door slams shut on its own. Anissa turns around and sees her mother's ghost standing in front of a cottage. Her mother vanishes, but Anissa heads to the cottage. And when she peeks inside, she sees a man performing a black magic ritual, his back turned toward her. As she turns to leave, she is yanked inside, and the door slams shut behind her. Ali and Dinar carry Fatih to the hall and ask Bagas to help. Ali quickly unties him, and Bagas rushes to check on Fatih. He begins reciting prayers, but suddenly, the lights in the hall go out, and Bagas immediately tells the students to shut all the doors. Meanwhile, the man uses his powers to make Anissa levitate in the air before hurling her across the room, slamming her against the wall, and he is revealed to be Rizwan. Anissa asks, "What did we do to deserve this?" But he drives a nail into her hands and feet using her voodoo doll. He then says, "You and your friends were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Yanuar, Rahim, and even the Kiai were sacrifices for something that is coming, a chaos far greater than this." He then approaches her and asks, "She still put her hope in those religious scholars?" saying, "They are already burning in hell." After this, he puts blood on her face and says he will make sure that she will be joining them soon. Meanwhile, the ghosts of Nurul, Rahim, and Yanuar surround the hall from all sides. Satrio bursts into the room and lunges at Rizwan, but Rizwan overpowers him and knocks him to the ground. Struggling, Satrio grabs a bottle and smashes it over Rizwan's head, and following Anissa's instruction, he grabs a pot and breaks it, causing the bodies trapped under black magic to collapse one by one, freed from the curse. They lock Rizwan inside the cottage just as Bagas and Ali arrive. Suddenly, a blazing ball of fire appears in the sky and shoots straight into the cottage. Moments later, Rizwan's agonizing screams echo through the entire school as the flames engulf him. The fire roars violently, and his body burns to ashes, ending his life in a storm of supernatural fury. The next day, they bury all the teachers, though Kiai is still missing. Satrio says softly, "Let's pray he's safe somewhere." And Anissa says, "May this tragedy never happen again." After he leaves, Anissa's mother's ghost appears beside her, silently watching, and the movie ends there.